Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. Connor, you've been playing it. You had a little preview session recently. Got to play a couple of hours of the game, a couple of different sort of sides of the gameplay, the on mission, off mission stuff. It's an Ubisoft open world game. It's, you know, from what we've seen of it and from what I've seen of it, it looks basically like Far Cry, but with like big blue people cutting about. What's the deal? And is it any co-op? How do you feel about it?
It's kind of like Far Cry for a bunch of blue people, sort of like, you know, doing their thing. Like, that's kind of the big question going in, right? It's like, is this just a Far Cry game? And it does do a lot of like nice, interesting things, especially if you're like a fan of the IP of Avatar. But in terms of like, you know, the core meat of it, it's like a Far Cry game. Which will be good news for a bunch of people, I'm sure, who loves that sort of like format.
So diplomatic.
I mean, and like for other people, it's like, oh, okay, sick. Like, it's another Far Cry game. For context, like I actually don't mind the Far Cry games. They're not like my favorite things in the world. So going in, it was like I did kind of expect that, and I got exactly kind of what I expected with a nice blue paint over it and a lot of like nice wildlife and you know, majestic scores and, you know, funny moments occasionally.
That sounds good. I mean, like the thing about Far Cry, and we're gonna keep bringing Far Cry up because, like, you know,
it's kind of impossible not to, right?
This feels like a Far Cry spin-off essentially, and I think it's perfectly fair to talk about it in those terms. So we're gonna keep doing it. It might annoy some people. But like the thing about those games is that they're very fast food, aren't they? It's like, you know, they're competent. They're not bad games by any stretch.
No, they're not.
But like, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who's really like, I don't know anyone who's like, I really can't wait for Far Cry 7 to get announced, man. I'm jonesing for a new Far Cry.
Right.
You know, but we all play them and we all go, yes, all right.
But that's the thing, right? Like, it's so obviously like, the game does a lot of cool stuff, and I will get into that for sure. But like, it is kind of like, it's not like a stylish like FPS like action game like Ghost Runner or Doom Eternal. Like, it's like a pretty, you know, calling it bread and water is a bit rough, but like it's kind of like it's a decent package, right? Like, you go around, you shoot folks, you punch some guys, and they go flying, which is quite fun. And you do just like, you know, standard Far Cry stuff. You go around, you capture like outposts, like enemy outposts, and you know, you chat to a bunch of NPCs. You do a bunch of like, little missions about, you know, freeing Pandora from, you know, the evil humans doing horrible stuff to it, which may sound a bit similar to freeing America from the evil Christians doing horrible things to it, or
freeing some kind of facsimile of Cuba or the Himalayas.
Or the Himalaya Mountains. So like, you play the game within like 10 minutes, and like we started like roughly 10% into the game, so you skip all the tutorial and like initial story bits. So they threw us right into the meat of it, and but at its in its guts is a Far Cry game. Which is, you know,
so everyone knows what to expect. I mean, it's a very easy preview for us, really, isn't it? So you feel like,
well, there's tons of stuff.
You know how this works.
There's tons of stuff that I didn't expect, or maybe like I didn't want to set, like, because you see an Avatar game and you're like, oh, there's tons of cool stuff you can do with it, right?
Yeah.
But you don't want to be like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if you could do this and that? The game takes a lot of effort in being like quite a faithful Avatar game. In some ways it's really cool, in other ways that's really funny. So a cool example is like, you remember in the films there's little plants where if you touch them they go like kind of like make like a pop noise, and they like suck into themselves, and all the different like unique flowers and fauna and stuff from the films are all present here. When the demo starts, they throw you right in the middle of like, you know, the bush. You can see all this stuff. It looks visually gorgeous, I'll say that, on this like ludicrous tax write-off PC Ubisoft had us all playing on. Like, it looks fantastic, but like, and it is quite cool just to like run super fast through like through like the environment, and it is quite cool to look at. It's also it's very serious about you playing the role as one of like the Na'vi, if that makes sense. So, for example, your weapons are two different types of bow, a type of like projectile launcher, and a machine gun that you nick from the humans milling around. You hunt. If you hunt in a way that's like nice to the animals, you don't like shoot a bunch of like LMG rounds into them and blow them up. You get more resources. You're rewarded very much by playing like someone who actually cares about the world. If you unload like 2 mags of machine gun ammo into other Na'vi, I'm pretty sure I was the only one at the preview who figured this out. It gives you like a punishment.
Right.
This is like you're disrupting nature, and it like debuffs you, so you can't talk to any NPCs. Like none of the people will talk to you, and like you can't trade or anything. And I'm fairly sure, I can't confirm this 100%. I think it spawned a pack of dogs on me, and it's lasted like 3 minutes, which it wasn't too bad, but it was funny. It's like, no, look, you're meant to actually like. This is an Avatar game. You shouldn't just be like in the wilderness, like shooting random like Na'vi who just like buy a campfire or something. It really wants you to get invested in the Avatar.
I do love that. You are not one with nature. Set the dogs on him.
It's like it is literally like it knows that the person this game is for is 100% Avatar fans, obviously, and people who like the Far Cry format, which is in many ways the most like easy to digest format of FPS games you sort of like put out there. So
is there a lot of crossover between those two groups of people?
No, but if you put like, so imagine like your hypothetical dad, right? Hypothetical. And he loves Avatar, dude. He watched both the films, Way of Water. He loves Avatar, and he wants to play an Avatar game. Right? He sees it in game or whatever, or HMV if those are still around. And he buys it. The game here would be most able to, vibe with is a first-person shooter in a style of Far Cry. So in a way, it's perfect because you can just throw this in front of anyone, and it's like unoffensive and it's pretty decent and fun. And it's cool as your big Na'vi to punch like a soldier who goes miles away. I think it's pretty decent. I came away from it thinking like, damn, this is a very neat Far Cry game.
That's really. I mean, what does it do? Is it like, I know we talked about some of the things that are specific to the license.
Sure.
Does it do anything else, sort of gameplay wise, that kind of pushes that Far Cry format?
You get a massive. You get the mission we were thrown in on was we got to kind of connect to your massive like Jurassic like Velociraptor bird thing. I don't know. I can't remember the name of it, but from the films. A big part of Na'vi culture is where you climb a mountain and then attach your. I don't know. It's like a braid willy, right? You like join it with like the animals, and then you'll have like a. It's kind of what it is. You kind of connect to. Sorry, James Cameron. You connect your braid to an animal, and then you become like best friends. You have like an emotional, like bond or whatever. So you do that. And then you get pushed off a cliff, and then you can fly around as this on this mount, and you call it like that, like really quickly, and it will come, it will help you in it will like scream at things in combat. You can like jump all over the place on it. You can fly all over the place. If you see like an island, not to just totally like rip off that Todd Howard line, but if you see that mountain, you can climb it. If you see like a floating sky island, you can actually just fly up to it. And mill around on it, which is pretty cool. I like the flying a lot in this game. It's pretty cool actually to like see a helicopter and just like unload a bunch of like rounds from a big flying dinosaur on it, and you can jump off midair and you can summon it in midair. So I spent like 5 minutes trying to like jump off my flying bird and then shoot enemies with bow and arrow in midair and like try and get back on the bird. Which you can do. You absolutely can do that. And
did you manage it?
I did, but it didn't kill anyone. you've got these like big mechs, right, which you're meant to shoot to pieces with your machine gun. But you can do it. Better people than me will be able to do it. There's a lot of fun in that.
That
It was
sounds
a
cool.
really ruthless full damage death sound though. I was sat next to some other media people and we were talking about it. And it's just really, it's like out of nowhere, surprisingly gruesome when you fall to your death. And no, you can't dive bomb anyone. If you run your mount into like a big stone mountain, it doesn't like smash into it and kill you and rag all over the place, which is what I personally wanted. It just like you kind of like slows down. So it's pretty easy to handle and it's pretty fun to use, which is again what I think.
Well, that's cool. I mean, I don't think the Far Cry games should be challenging, if that makes sense. So they should just be like a ramble power fantasy.
Yeah.
I think this is an interesting one because it is doing some things that are outside of the scope of a normal Far Cry game, so that's really cool. And how big was the map? Did you notice? Because obviously, like this is the next gen only game, right? Is that correct?
I believe so. I'll have to double check that for sure. Looking at the map, it seemed quite big. We were only given sort of like access to a smallish, well, kind of a chunk of it, right? Where there's lots of like green forestry and like jungle, and there's a nice big river. It's quite a nice looking zone, but you could see there's lots of like barren areas north of that. There's a big like black polluted area where I assume the human faction has kind of like messed things up. Lots of themes of like nature's being hurt, so you gotta like drop kick a bunch of people to get them out so you can like mess with the flowers and stuff again. It looks quite big, and in terms of actually like traversing around it, it is quite sizable actually. Like,
I was gonna say, because if you've got this big flying creature, I imagine it has to be big just to kind of accommodate that.
You have plenty of room to fly around.
That's really good.
And it's still used for like fast travel and stuff like that, which is present in the game, to save you some time. So yeah, I think there's a lot of room to mess around in. But full disclosure, we didn't see the full map. We just saw a slice of it.
I mean, it all sounds pretty decent. It sounds like a solid 7 out of 10.
You want to hear some wank about it though? It's obviously not all perfect. The game has a store.
Right.
It's for the most part, it does have I think 2-player co-op in it, but it's a single-player game, right? For the most part, there's no multiplayer like competitive like shooting aspect of it. It has a real-ass store page with gems or whatever, like game currency, where you can buy skins of and banners and sprays and gear.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
It's just the Assassin's Creed thing where you can buy like clothes for your horse and stuff, but it's a single player game and nobody's ever going to see it apart from you.
Yeah. So you can buy like cool new arm wraps that give you like longbow like damage boost 20% or whatever. But they look like I will admit I'm not the biggest Avatar like super fan ever. They may have been Jake Sully's arm wraps. I can't confirm or deny. But they didn't look like you get gear so much. When during the missions I played, just doing like side missions and the main mission, you get a decent amount of gear that lets you customize what your like character is like and how they perform and that sort of thing. I don't see the point of it aside from just like, do you want to drop £10 on a cool new loadout? Which I guess if it's been like put in previous like Assassin's Creed games in recent years or whatever, I get there might be a precedent for it, but it's there and it sucked. I did spend some of the money that Ubisoft had on the account and I couldn't equip it.
Oh wow!
But full disclosure, I did try and spend Ubisoft's money, and specifically on a skin that was like texture not found, to see if I could break the demo. I could not do that. I'm sorry. I did try my best.
I mean, I can just imagine like a PR walking past with a raised eyebrow as you were trying to do that.
But like, yeah, I mean, aside from the store, like, obviously, I praised the idea, but this is like a Far Cry format game. It's a very Ubisoft first-person shooter.
Mm-hmm.
I think even if you do love Avatar, it does obviously have the failings of the Far Cry series in terms of like a core gameplay experience. As you said it was kind of like junk food. I believe it's not the most like exhilarating first-person shooter in the world to play. You don't get as many options as other games out there. Like, it's not. It is what it is, right? So in the past, if you've played a Far Cry game and you've been like, this is alright, it's the same package, albeit a very nice-looking version of it, which is cool. Like, it's fine, right? And yeah, that's kind of the major negatives of that. It slapped a store page in there for seemingly no reason, apart from just like the way of getting cash from Avatar fans, which is fine. I mean, I think they're mostly Tories, right? And I mean, it has the same sort of flaws as Far Cry, but Far Cry is super popular, so maybe like who cares?
I love this. It's got the same. It's like all the downsides of Far Cry and the downsides of the Avatar franchise finally brought together.
It's kind of hard. It's so tempting to be like, it's an Avatar game, right? It's so tempting to be like, mate, you play as a Na'vi person and you shoot bows at soldiers who are kicking dogs in the forest. Like, that's kind of like, it's so tempting to be like, so you can dig into all this stuff. Like, for example, the missions I played were really cool.
Yeah.
The voice acting performance was really great, you know. I had a really nice time flying about. If you're an Avatar fan, mate, just it's kind of a game made for you. And it does a good job of being an Avatar game.
Yeah.
It's not just like let's just slap a skin on it and throw it out there. It does actually pay a lot of attention to, you know, what makes Avatar.
That's cool. I mean,
but that also means that if you can't stand IP, what you doing? Like, if you don't stand like Call of Duty, you don't play Call of Duty game.
Yeah. I mean, it's in many ways it's like it's a real match made in heaven, because
it is. Yeah.
You know, Avatar is like so forgettable as a film series, and I know when the second film came out, the marketing tried to basically gaslight everyone into thinking it was like they were going on about it like, you know, remember this? You didn't shop about this for years. It's the long-awaited sequel to the Avatar. I was like, no, people stopped talking about the first Avatar like a week later. Like, it had a quicker drop-off than like the Game of Thrones finale.
Right.
Which, fine. Okay, you know, it like, but it's like the Avatar films, they're like, they're fine. They're, you know, like technically really proficient. They're made by there's great people involved. Directed by James Cameron. Like there's great like filmmakers involved. There's great performers and actors involved. Like all the sort of component parts of it are perfectly well produced. But it's just to make something that's kind of a bit mid and not very inspiring. And I feel like Far Cry is exactly the same. It's like nobody involved in making a Far Cry game is like incompetent. They're
in fact
kind of masters of their craft.
Yeah, the game is really well made, and there's clearly a lot of love put into it. But like, I don't think it's like a Game of the Year winner, unless the slice I've been shown is like a kind of build up to a really, really sick sort of like mid to the end game. It's a pretty decent first person shooter where you can jump on a dinosaur flying thing and you can jump off it in midair and shoot a bunch of soldiers and blow up a I don't know, baby cooking factory.
Yeah. And for a lot of dads out there, that's all it needs to be.
That's kind of it. Like, I mean, you can say the same. It's the same about Far Cry, but like, an Avatar is kind of like this kind of I suppose vapid entity. It kind of comes out, makes a lot of noise, and it goes away. But
Yeah.
like Avatar 2 was like the first film in the box office to like sell crazy well and bring in people, right? Even if they weren't necessarily talking about it a month later. And Far Cry games continue to sell like hotcakes, right? Even if people aren't like, oh man, I just love Far Cry 5 or whatever. Like,
Man, when Far Cry 4 got added to FPS boost on Xbox, I was like, oh man, I got to get that downloaded. Like, why? I'm not going to play Far Cry 4, but you know.
it's there. That's kind of the thing. It's there, you know?
Yeah.
I think that there are going to be some people who go absolutely nuts for Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. It's hard to put it into words. Even as someone who's not like, you know, just like head over heels in love with Jake Sully and his kids or whatever. It's like made in a lab for Avatar fans. And that might sound like I'm being sort of like, I don't know, speaking down to the game. I'm really not. There's something to be said about the qualities and the merits of a game just tailor-made to make a bunch of 35-year-olds happy.
I just love this hole that you keep digging. And then you keep digging a little hole, then you keep sort of leaping out of it at the last minute.
I walked away after the whole demo was gone, and we said, "Oh, thanks, guys. This is really great. This is awesome." We walked out, and I was talking to other people there. I was like, "Yeah, that's pretty good." And I was walking home. I'm like, "Man, there's gonna be some dad who loves this game."
Yeah. Well, the noise that you just made there, yeah, it's pretty good. That's Far Cry in a nutshell. That's Avatar in a nutshell. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's it's pretty good sort of.
You want to invest some skill points in your longbow proficiency, bro?
Yeah.
You want to go out into the woods and grab some alien bee honey and some.
Yeah.
You want to shoot a deer with a bow and arrow and then do like a 10-second animation where you thank it for giving its meat to you and how it's going back to nature, which thankfully does shorten if you shoot more deer. There's a real sinking moment in my stomach where I shot a deer for resources and then you kneel down as I was getting like attacked by dogs and do like a whole spiel about like thank you for giving your life for sustenance or whatever. It does shorten down on repeat. You do kind of. It does shorten down after like consecutive sick 360 no scopes on deer that you really respect. By the way, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for giving your life so I can craft a wallet.
So you go back to camp and you put a bunch of like alien deer steak and like eggs, like sick like fanged bird eggs into a cooking like sub menu, so you can make steak and eggs, but like nice like ethically sourced steak and eggs. That gives you like a nourishment bonus, so you can slide 10% further. Like it's very much like craft a bow, shoot the bow at a guy, punch his mate, laugh and smile as he goes flying like 50 feet because you're a big alien blue person with a massive hair knob. And like you know, just like vibe out on the couch, you know, order a pizza
and then be all serious and somber as you skin a deer in order to carry one extra handgun. And when you see a story critical NPC sort of dive into a helicopter and see that helicopter crash into the ground, explode, and then half a second later the game, admittedly in an early state, hard cuts out of the cinematic and you're like, did she just die? Did that character just like die? And then you go over to the crash site and you can't find it, and then like you're like, oh god, and then you hand in the quest and eventually crashes through the ceiling. I'm alive! It's like, oh, brilliant, awesome. We have to fight back against these people. Dad, I told you, they're evil. You know. Fairly standard Ubisoft open world experience then,
There's
I guess.
a moment where I'm in this... Okay, so a bit of inside baseball here. They put you... For people at home, if you've never been invited by Ubisoft to play a game early, they take you into this nice sort of like I suppose it must be like a games testing room, but it's like a room with a bunch of like setups there and the game loaded up there, and developing people walking up and down the room, making sure you're not like, I don't know, Mr. Robot downloading malware or something. And you sort of sit on this chair. It's usually a pretty decent chair, and you just play the game for 2 hours as you like capture footage, and you make notes on your pad, or if you're me, you kind of get a scrap piece of paper from the train station and buy a pen for like £2, and then you make notes on that. And sitting there in this totally uncomfortable like environment, right? Which is like not uncomfortable. It's very comfortable. It's not like your natural environment. I was sitting back playing Far Cry, and you get this feeling that I've not had since I was like in sixth form, when I was lying back on my sofa playing Far Cry 3. And I was just like, man, I could drop like 50 hours on this and not even notice. Like, and that's a real merit for the series, really, if you want that. If you
That's
want to
what
come
it boils
back from
down
work,
to, isn't it? Yeah.
if you want to come back from to Mines after a hard day in to Mines and to your loving family, and you want to eat dinner and, you know, scruffle the hair of your son and kiss your wife, and then play Far Cry for 2 hours before you go to bed, or whatever working parents do with actual jobs. You can do that with Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora.
Yeah. It's you paint such a bleak picture of the sort of person that needs...
No, I have to emphasize, I really don't mean to. Just because it's not necessarily me doesn't mean that this isn't... I have to try and, with no tongue-in-cheek at all, this is for some people.
You know, some people...
Like that, and it's probably...
That's a box quote. It's definitely... This game is for some people. Like... I mean, the subtext there was like the guy comes home. He's been driving for an hour and a half. He hates his job.
Yeah, man. He works.
He gives the wife he hates a peck on the cheek. He ruffles the hair of the son he finds disappointing, and then he loves
his son. No, come on.
And then he
this is a
sits
Far Cry
down.
fan.
He loves him, but he finds him disappointing.
If you're a Far Cry fan, you have a pretty decent life, I think.
And then he sits in front of the latest Ubisoft open world game, and he sighs.
Smile.
And he sinks another 3.5 hours into it before morbidly trouncing off to bed and doing it all again.
Before he doesn't have... No, I can't say that. I can't say that.
And he might even buy a time skip.
Jake Sully's assault rifle.
You'll buy a time skip from the Avatar Frontiers of Pandora gem shop that unlocks, like, that tells you where all the chests are or whatever. And it's like, I love that that's in Ubisoft games, because it's like, oh yeah, well if you pay like $1.99, you don't have to do any of this grind. And it's like, especially for a Far Cry game, like the grind's all you got.
I feel like, yeah,
but you know, this is definitely for some people. I'm probably going to play it and quite enjoy it.
Some people, by the way, doesn't mean like 2 out of 10 people. It probably means like 6 out of 10 people.
Yeah. 6 out of 10 game for 6 out of 10 people.
It's probably like
6 out of 10 dads agree.
Like I said, made in the lab. So if you're any sort of Avatar fan, you can jump in and have a good time.
More focus group than the Labour Party. It sounds, I mean, you know, it sounds, I don't think anyone who is like the kind of person who reads an enthusiast gaming website is going to be under any illusions about what this is.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's got some. Listen, there are. I feel like I've done a bad job at sort of expressing it. There are some cool things about this game. There are. friend of the website, friend of the show, Bertie Purchase from Eurogamer,
Bertie Purchase, yeah. Was he there?
was there, smiling up the place. Lovely guy.
It's a good lad, him, yeah.
Said that he discovered a sort of optional, that I didn't find, non-marked, sort of like big, sort of like, not monster, but big animal you can find in the wilderness that he like tracked down and like fought. That sounds great for, a Avatar fan. And it sounds like a cool sort of gameplay addition in general anyway. Man, you're picking trees and you're shooting dudes like 95% of the time. So like, I can be like, oh, there's lots to explore, and there is, and it's cool to fly around, and it is. But you going in, if you are curious about getting the game, you kind of should know what the meat of the game is, and it is Far Cry, which is great, I guess.
Well, there you have it. It's great, I guess. Connor Macker on the box. But yeah, I mean, like, it looks like, I'll definitely say this for it as well. Like, Ubisoft are brilliant at making open world maps. They're brilliant at making worlds. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a on record massive fan of Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
And I do love a bit of Far Cry, and I'm massively looking forward to Star Wars Outlaws and stuff like that. And I feel this is, this has that same appeal, but for people who are massively into Avatar, which
I think Ubisoft is really good at making smart decisions on what games they should make, if that makes sense. They're releasing an Avatar game in the most sort of like widely accessible sort of form of a first-person shooter you can. And they're releasing it early December, right before people are going to be buying Christmas presents. For anyone in their family.
God, it's really good Christmas game fodder, actually. If you want to veg
sat
out.
on the train, right, and I was like, this is going to do nuts just on Christmas.
Yeah.
Like, separating the fact that there are going to be people who are like, I love Way of the Water. I hope that's the name of the film. I love it so much. It's so good. Decent film, to be fair. It's going to just sell so well to people who are really normal.
Yeah.
which I
not that we know much about that.
Again, that's not me, but that's great. Good for them, dude. Like, that's so sick.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, the 99% of people playing this are going to be doing it on a Sony Bravia, and God love them. All right. Okay. Should we leave that there?
Yeah. If you look like the guy from that Nintendo Legends of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom like live trailer, you get the bus home from work and you kiss your wife and then you sit in your really expensive apartment to play a video game in your suit.
Yeah,
dude, Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora, mate, is a game made for you.
Yeah, laser targeted at the kind of guy who doesn't take off his shirt to play Switch.
At some guy, yeah. If you have a healthy life, a loving family, a good diet, an exercise routine, good relationships with friends and loved ones, a good career path, a car. If you are a guy or a person.
Right, stop that there.